For ancient northern Europeans, like the Celts, Anglo-Saxons and Vikings, nature wasn't just a collection of separate physical objects. To them, nature was alive and sacred. They believed in an other world, such as the Celtic She or the Norse realms connected by Yggdrasil, that could be reached through special places in nature like hills, groves or sacred trees. But perhaps the most intriguing part of their view is that they look to nature for wisdom, guidance, and even a sense of morality. What fascinates me is that this practice is still possible for everyone to perform today, though few actually attempt it. Personally, I believe that going against the laws of nature will ultimately lead to destruction, not just of the individual, but of the people and society as a whole. Yet, for those willing to listen, there's so much to learn from the world around us. Most of us face really tough times in life, and it feels like more people are on antidepressants than ever, which isn't surprising in a modern world where we're increasingly cut off from nature, staring at screens for 10 hours a day. So this video isn't just about the ancient Britons and Northern Europeans and their connection to nature, especially trees. It's also about how we can use those old ways of seeing the world to build inner strength, develop a more positive outlook, and sharpen our critical thinking. Celts and Druids in particular saw nature as a mirror for human behaviour, guidance and even morality. When we observe animal behaviours, plant cycles and natural phenomena, we can find patterns and lessons that can be applied to life's challenges. When we take the time to truly read the world around us, we're aligning ourselves with nature's rhythms, almost like we're syncing with its cycles and wisdom. This way of connecting was at the heart of Druid and Celtic philosophy, where nature itself was seen as a living guide, offering lessons in the cycles of life. Did you know that the only bird in the world to dare attack an eagle is the crow? It perches on the eagle's back and pecks at its neck. However, the eagle doesn't respond, fight, waste time, or expend any energy on fighting back. Instead, the eagle opens its wings and starts to soar as high as possible. The higher the eagle flies, the harder it becomes for the crow to breathe. Eventually, the crow will fall due to a lack of oxygen. This is an incredibly compelling metaphor. It's evident why the Druidic ideology embraced observing nature as a means to guide one's way of life. These examples are all around us, but I think we're less observant than ever, thanks to fast-paced media like TikTok and the steady decline in IQ over the last century. IQ reflects in part our ability to focus, and that includes the focus to observe nature and integrate its lessons into our own beliefs. Next time you're out in nature, whether you're hiking up a mountain or just sitting in your garden, pause and really watch what's happening around you. What stories is nature telling? What metaphors or insights can you take from it and apply to your own life? Just as our ancestors once did, reconnecting with these old ways of seeing the world help us find the inner strength and peace which we're all searching for. Nature is a teacher, guiding us on how to live in balance with life's challenges. One of the most revered symbols of strength and wisdom in nature is the oak tree. While the eagle shows us how to rise above life's obstacles, the oak teaches us about endurance and groundedness. The Druids held the oak as the most sacred of trees, a living example of the patience and resilience needed to weather adversity over time. Oaks take years to grow and mature, but withstand storms, droughts and other hardships due to their deep roots and sturdy trunk. This expresses the importance of inner strength and resilience, the idea that true growth will come through your patience and an ability to withstand any adversity over time. The oak can teach you to value wisdom that comes gradually, reinforcing that strength is built over the long haul. Among the Brythonic Celts, it was central to the Druidic faith, where oak groves became sacred spaces for rituals and ceremonies. Oaks act as conduits between the Otherworld and the earth. Their towering height and long lifespan connect them to both the gods above and the ancestral spirits below. Sitting beneath an oak or gathering in oak groves is a way of drawing closer to the Otherworld, accessing wisdom, strength, and the protection of the gods and ancestral spirits. Trees hold an undeniable symbolic power. The ancient word nemos, meaning the heavens, stems from the Indo-European root nem, to bend or curve, illustrating a cosmos upheld by towering pillars that connect earth and sky. We envision these sacred trees as the pillars holding up our world, bridging realms of existence. Even the very earth, which the Goidelic Celts called Talam, ground or bearer, acts as a steadfast support beneath us, much like the oaks that reach upward, symbolising strength and continuity between realms. The oak tree embodies a cosmic connection. Its deep roots anchor it firmly in the earth, while its expansive branches reach skyward, making it a living conduit between the physical world and the other world. The oak's sacred energy resonates with the concept of Arwen, a force we understand as inspiration or divine flow. This balanced energy inspires creativity, insight, and courage. The oak's stability and strength mirror these qualities, symbolising wisdom and the bridging of realms. This connection is reflected in the very word druid, derived from the Proto-Celtic druid, with dru meaning firm or solid. It shares roots with the Indo-European origins of tree and true, reinforcing the idea that druids are those who uphold wisdom and truth, just as the oak upholds the world. The oak's role as a bridge between worlds is written in later Celtic literature, including the Mabinogion, a medieval Welsh collection of stories. In the tale of Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed, the forest of Glyn Keach becomes a mysterious and liminal setting where Pwyll encounters Hawthorn, the king of the Otherworld. This secluded, untouched location represents the Celtic belief that certain natural places are closer to the supernatural. Here's an excerpt from Lady Charlotte Guest's translation of the Mabinogion. One day Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed, was at Arbroath, one of his chief courts, and it came into his head and his heart to go hunting. The part of his domain he went hunting in was the forest Glyn Keach. And as he was listening to the cry of the pack, he became separated from his companions. He could hear the cry of another pack, unfamiliar to him, with a strange cry different from that of his own hounds. Following the strange sounds, he came to a glade where he encountered the pack of hounds belonging to Arawn, king of Eight Noon, and thus began their otherworldly interaction. In Glyn Keach, a forest imbued with otherworldly mystery, the barrier between worlds seems to fade away, allowing Pwyll to cross into the otherworld. The forest's wild, remote nature expresses the qualities the Celts ascribed to sacred oaks and groves, places of solitude and mystery where interactions with the supernatural were possible. These wild places and ancient trees represent a living bridge to the divine, connecting the tangible world with the intangible otherworld. Like most people in modern Western societies, I found myself unable to name the trees, flowers, and other natural wonders surrounding us every day. It's not that I'm pointing fingers at anyone specifically. This disconnect from nature has become almost the norm. Due to our extreme capitalist society, the scales have tipped, with material possessions and wealth overpowering our connection to nature and sense of morality. This relentless pursuit of more has left little room for the values that once connected us to morality. We know more brand logos than birds and trees. I suppose this shows how advertising has made materialism a new religion. On a recent walk through Lancashire, I kept noticing certain trees, gnarled, ancient, beautiful, that seemed to carry a mystical aura, and something about them just felt so distinctly English. The hawthorn tree. Looking at these trees, I felt an undeniable sense of magic and mystery. Now I know this might sound a bit odd, but I can't be the only one who feels a deep, spiritual and almost indescribable connection to nature. And perhaps that's not so odd, as our Brythonic and Celtic ancestors believed we're all interconnected. Taliesin, the renowned 6th century poet, captured this idea in Cad Godu, or the Battle of the Trees. When you really focus on an object in nature, open your mind and take in just how complex and strange this world truly is, everything becomes, well, just incredible. Each hawthorn, twisted and gnarled, standing there like some old spirit under a druid spell, frozen in time, bound to the earth for centuries, its branches stretched out like ancient hands shaped by wind and weather. Every knot in the roots and branches felt as if the tree had been quietly watching the world change through the ages. To the Brythonic people and the Celts, hawthorn trees like this weren't just part of the scenery. They were sacred, protectors of boundaries, keepers of deep old lore. There's a dark, mysterious beauty in the hawthorn tree, anciently mysterious, with its bright white blossoms popping against the rough bark, expressing a duality and transformation. Standing near them, you really feel like you're in the presence of something far older, wiser, and, well, English than you could ever be. So I knew there is more to these trees that meets the eye, and our ancestors must have had a connection and interesting belief on their purpose. As it turns out, our ancestors held these beliefs even more deeply than I could have imagined. The hawthorn tree is intimately linked to the realm of fairies, or the she, the real fairies. Today we see them as guardians of nature, powerful and sometimes unpredictable beings that dwell in the other world, interacting with our realm at their discretion. Unlike the concept in modern fairy tales, these beings aren't always friendly or benign. They act as protectors of the land and its sacred places. The hawthorn is a representation of healing and the heart. In Celtic healing, it guards the heart to bring courage. The hawthorn's association with the heart comes from its physical and symbolic properties. The plant itself was used in traditional remedies, especially for heart health, as it was believed to strengthen the cardiovascular system and regulate blood flow. Celtic healers use hawthorn berries, leaves and flowers in infusions and tinctures to help with heart ailments, high blood pressure and anxiety. This is well documented in herbal medicine practices, especially in European and Celtic folk traditions. Historical herbal texts, particularly by herbalist and rebel Nicholas Culpeper in the 17th century, mention hawthorn as beneficial for the heart and circulatory system. While Culpeper's writings came long after the Celtic period, his work drew on earlier European folk traditions, which preserved some knowledge from Celtic healing practices. The tree itself holds a duality: thorns for protection, flowers for love, hope and fertility. A perfect reflection of the she themselves, who are both guardians and unpredictable beings. Then there are stories of the fairy queen, the banshee, who appeared near hawthorn trees at Beltane or Samhain when the veil between worlds thinned. Crossing paths with her might bring a blessing or a curse. To stay in her favour, people should leave offerings of milk or little trinkets, hoping for luck or protection as the seasons change. This story of Thomas the Rhymer, also known as True Thomas, is a classic piece of Scottish folklore involving the fairy queen or she-queen and her connection to the hawthorn tree. The story itself was passed down orally for centuries. The ballad Thomas the Rhymer, or True Thomas, as recorded in Child Ballad 37, is based on a 13th century Scottish folklore. The historical Thomas the Rhymer, also known as Thomas of Erceldoune, was a real figure. A Scottish laird and poet from Erceldoune, now Earlston, in the borders of Scotland, believed to have lived around the mid-13th century. In this tale, Thomas meets the she-queen under a hawthorn tree. Here's an excerpt from Child Ballad 37, which captures the essence of their encounter. True Thomas lay on Huntly bank, a furley he spied with his ee, and there he saw a lady bright come riding down by the eildon tree. Her shirt was of the grass-green silk, her mantle of the velvet fine. At ilkatet of her horse's mane hung 50 syllabels and 9. True Thomas he pulled off his cap and louted low down to his knee. All hail, thou mighty Queen of Heaven, for thy peer on earth I never did see. Oh no, Thomas, she said, that name does not belong to me. I am but the Queen of fair Elfland, that am hither come to visit thee. And Thomas took her by the hand, and they rode on together into the fairy realm. Hawthorn also carried the promise of renewal, especially during Beltane. Its blossoms decorated homes and altars, invoking health, prosperity and fertility. But timing was everything. Bringing hawthorn indoors outside of Beltane was said to bring misfortune, a reminder to respect the boundaries of the she. And finally, the fairy triad: hawthorn, oak and ash. Oddly enough, I was just listening to something about the significance of the number 3, and it struck me that the Celts must have chosen these 3 trees very intentionally. The number 3 clearly held special meaning for them, and it seems to be integrated into their beliefs. The Celtic concept of triplism shows a fascinating context for the fairy triad of hawthorn, oak and ash. The Celts inherited a reverence for the number 3 from their Indo-European ancestors, and triplism appears across Celtic society, belief and art. The number 3 symbolizes balance, harmony, and completion, qualities that gave form to their sense of life and the universe itself. In early Celtic culture, triplism showed up in structures both societal and spiritual. The division of Gaul into 3 parts, as Caesar noted, and the tripartite classification of Celtic holy figures, bards, vates, and druids, conveys the power they saw in groups of 3. Even in Celtic art, triple forms were a recurring motif. Triskelions, 3-leaf patterns on lateen sword sheaths, and later triple-headed figures. This tradition carried on into the medieval period, where the concept of triplicity was woven into Celtic myth, literature, and wisdom teachings, often seen in triads that reinforce the idea of interconnected yet distinct realms or beings. In the fairy triad, hawthorn, oak, and ash, we see the lasting significance of the number 3. Each tree brings its own unique energy, with hawthorn offering protection and mysticism, oak radiating strength and resilience, and ash standing as a bridge between worlds. Together they form a harmonious blend of distinct qualities, working in unison to create a natural gateway to the otherworld. In these spaces, ancient Celts believed they could encounter the spirits of the otherworld, and it was here that they felt the presence of Cur Nuno, who watched over these intersections. This god is the embodiment of wisdom, strength, and balance we seek, qualities that are amplified in these natural power spots. When these trees grow together, they form not just a gateway, but a connection to the divine forces within nature itself. Through this triad, we see how different qualities, when held in balance, don't just hold symbolic value, but can create a real spiritual connection. Just as the Celts' 3-part social and spiritual structures fostered harmony, the combination of hawthorn, oak, and ash forms a power spot, a threshold where the physical world and the other world meet. Such locations are naturally sacred and warrant respect, as they attract the she and other spirits. Today, these points of natural convergence invite us to pause and listen, whether in seeking insight from the otherworld or making small offerings to honor and seek favor from the fair folk. Thus, the fairy triad stands as a symbolic and mystical boundary, a natural gateway where we too might encounter otherworldly beings or forces. This triad is respected as a portal to realms beyond our own, inviting reverence and caution. Approaching these spaces with intention and respect, we honor the idea of crossing into a realm of deeper connection, where the natural world meets the mysterious and sacred. Imagine the way these trees grew together, their roots twisting and supporting each other underground. In that same way, the Celts saw the strength of their communities, their connection to nature, and the wisdom passed down through generations. They knew that while life might feel like a lone path, real power comes from our ties to others, to the land, and even to forces beyond what we can see. So perhaps the triad teaches us that, like these trees, we need to seek connection in our own lives, to stand strong, look deeper, and know that we're part of something bigger.